So, legacy sequels. What are they? It's typically a sequel to a movie with a long time in between the two movies. A decade or more. That's about as broad of a definition that I can really find. Like, it's a thing that has a very loose definition. Sometimes the main focus is on a different character, but still interacts with the other characters from the original. Sometimes that main focus is a character that's completely new to the franchise, and sometimes not. What I just said is admittedly not super interesting. However,
go on.
This might be. In the horror genre, we have two horror movies this year that are considered legacy sequels. The first was Night Watch, Demons Are Forever. I actually threw this one on my list for one of the best horror movies of the year, part 1 review. Feel free to give that vid a watch if you are looking for some suggestions on what next to watch. And of course, subscribe, my babies. And if you want to watch Night Watch Demons Are Forever, good news. It's on AMC Plus, the original is as well. So if you're in the mood for a European serial killer thriller, give them a watch and tell them 7 Feet Under sent ya. And the second one is, of course, Beetlejuice Beetlejuice, which I will be going over with some spoilers because I got some stuff to say, good and bad. Don't worry, I won't do anything reckless like say Beetlejuice for a third time. Oh shh!
It's showtime.
So, there is actually more than one reason why I brought up Night Watch 2 and Beetlejuice 2 in the same vid. They both take place 30 years after the original was released.
You serious, Clark?
Also, in both originals, they follow a few characters, admittedly more in B2. Can't risk summoning that guy again. He is scary, right?
What do you think of this? You like it?
Yeah, he's scary. In both sequels, the main characters take a step back for the sake of introducing new characters and their journey in the movie. And both of those happen to include the children of the characters from the first movies. Kind of a fun coincidence that these movies came out the same year and have so much in common. But that's where it ends. Night Watch were very serious movies, and the B movies are much more fun and lighthearted. The Juice 2 focuses on Lydia being a single mom and the TV show host of The Supernatural. Other returning characters are, of course, the Juice and Delia. New characters are a few fun dead ones like Wolf Jackson, played by Willem Dafoe, which was a nice surprise. Monica Bellucci, who can play in literally any role in any movie without any objection.
I'll give you what you want, but you have to give me something.
What?
A kiss.
Yes! Yes! Oh, yeah!
A new living character is Astrid, Lydia's daughter, played by Jenna Ortega. There are a few other characters, but we'll get to them later. You may have noticed that I missed a few people, and it is sad to say that the main ghosts, Barbara and Adam Maitland, did not return for the sequel.
What? Oh, come on!
I know it's kind of hard to imagine a sequel without the two arguably most important characters of the movie, considering it was their first haunting in their home. The story was really more about them and everyone else just came into their lives. Of course, the fan favorites were Lydia and the Juice, but the story didn't really revolve around them. Anyways, yeah, it sucks, but this movie still has plenty of OG characters left to still build a plot around. Speaking of, the whole reason for the movie is the death of Charles Dietz, played by Jeffrey Jones. Honestly, the way they did his character in this movie was probably the best thing that they could do, considering there was no way they would ever let that guy back into this franchise. Or like any other movie ever. I'll let you all look up the reason why on your own.
Yikes.
So the family get together for his funeral at the original house. Even though the movie goes back to the original town and more specifically the house, they write off the Maitlands not being there in a one-liner that didn't really sit well with me, but I eventually got over it. So during the funeral preparations and the funeral, and I think the night of, Lydia is dealing with her current boyfriend, also producer of her show. Astrid is dealing with a local crush, the Juice is dealing with an undead ex that I'll go into further in a little bit, and Delia is dealing with her husband's death. So the three major characters all have something going on that aren't really connected to each other, so the runtime dedicated to them is cut up pretty evenly. The problem with that is that none of them really get fleshed out, and at the end they all get resolved with relatively zero consequence. It really should not come as a surprise that Beetlejuice pretty much solves all of the problems of the movie, because that's what he did in the last movie. The man has godlike powers compared to literally every other dead person. It's odd that there is never an explanation to why, and the main reason I even bring it up is because he is fearful for his ex throughout the whole movie, but at the end when they confront each other, he treats it like it's no big deal.
Huh?
Yeah, it doesn't really make a lot of sense, and really takes all of the threat level out of arguably the main villain of the movie, even though the Juice is arguably more powerful and has a higher threat level. Going a bit further into the X, I think she is essentially what the writers built off of when they were coming up with a reason for the sequel to exist. If you recall, before Beetleman tried to marry Lydia in the first movie, he needed to present a ring for the ceremony, so he pulled out a severed finger from his pocket that had a ring on it. That's it. This movie exists to answer that question.
You serious?
In the movie's defense, it is a legit thing that ties the movies together, which some legacy sequels or sequels in general don't care enough about to build off of, so I can't knock it too hard there. Also, in the movie's defense, that one thing does have some perks because we do get some actual backstory to Beetlejuice, which was nice, and we also get some new info about the afterlife, which is also nice. But it does come at a price.
Oh man, there's always a catch.
Some things do get retconned-ish in the movie. If you recall, I mean, of course I do because I remember everything. How else do you think I come up with these clips? You think I look them up at random?
Please.
They are nestled snug in my skull, just waiting to burst out for a mediocre joke. Back to the changes. So in the original, the Maitlands, when they died, they just appeared back in their home to haunt it for the next 125 years, which apparently is no longer required because they found a loophole, which is why they aren't in this movie. Ugh. But in the sequel, we do follow a man who suddenly dies and is sent back to the hallway room, even though when the Maitlands get to the office space afterlife, they go directly to the waiting room. Oh, and speaking of these rooms, you remember the style of the first movie? Literally everything was bright and colorful and very easy to see. Well, in the sequel, someone forgot to pay the electric bill because it is ridiculously dark. It actually reflects a sad truth that the 90s was truly the last decade. Whenever you watch a movie from the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, there's a certain charm and style to the movie that tells you you are watching a movie from a particular decade. But almost all movies made post-2000s just mush together into kinda nothingness. The only exceptions are like when you make a movie set in a different time period, like Longlegs gave off that vibe, and even Cuckoo, though it was a bit confusing during the movie when that actually takes place. B2 has some things like practical effects that try to keep that remaining charm of the original, but the dark lighting and occasional bad CGI reminded me this is a post-2000s movie. Another thing they replicate is the musical number, which in the first movie was really fun and rememberable, mostly because not only was something fun happening, but it was a fun song. In this movie, they play it at first a little bit, and it's funny, gives you a little ho 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 in your popcorn-infused beer belly. But just like in the first one, they play it again at the ending. It worked in the first movie because the movie was essentially over by the second time they played it. But here, there was still stuff to be resolved and they play like the entire song.
I can't take it anymore. I just want to die. We all want to die.
And going back to the ending to wrap this all up, every obstacle of the movie gets wrapped up, and then the Juice is taken care of relatively easily, and it comes out of nowhere and it just kinda sucks. Oh, before I forget, we do see the sandworms again, and they just don't look as good. Also, was it always canon that the sand place was a moon of Saturn?
Huh?
Someone let me know in the comments, was it always canon that the sandworms were on another planet, or moon? It just seems out there, even for Beetlejuice standards. So that's something which is told to us in this movie, which is a, odd choice. Also, the model of the town in the attic is shrunk. In the original, it's a whole town, but in the sequel, it's just like 2 blocks. And I'm sure plenty of people didn't realize that, but me being a fake film critic and really egotistical movie buff, I noticed. And that's all from me. Overall, the movie is a bit of fun. It's definitely not nearly as iconic as the original. Admittedly, those were some tough shoes to fill, so they did pretty well with what they had, which was not much. Even if you have high expectations, you will still get some fun out of it, and I gotta give most of the credit to Delia Dietz. She's hilarious.
Jocelyn, there are certain things that are just not done. Smoking in a car with a baby, unless you crack a window.
Honestly, the movie would have gone down a peg or two if Delia Dietz wasn't in it. And that's it from me. Thank you all for watching, and stay tuned. Next time we may be speaking of evil, even though we aren't supposed to.
How long's it been?
17 years.
17 years. Wow.
You get less for murder.
Thank you all for watching till the end. We're getting close to monetization. We just need my watch hours to go up. So please, feel free to give a like, a sub, and click to watch one of my other vids. It'll be spooky.